Alright, let's begin the Literary Research Aptitude section. Usually, this section gives us around 5 to 6 questions, but this time we got 9. That's 4 extra chances to score easy marks. And honestly, it was one of the easiest sections in the entire paper. So, are you ready? Here comes your first question. Which bibliography is concerned with the close analysis of individual copies of books in the light of our knowledge of how books were produced? Is it descriptive, analytical, enumerative, or historical? The correct answer is analytical bibliography. So what exactly is that? Think of it like this. Imagine holding 2 copies of the same book from the 18th century. They look the same, or do they? Analytical bibliography dives deep into the physical details paper, binding, typesetting, press work, to figure out how a book was made, which edition came first, where printing errors happened, and what got changed along the way. It's not just about listing or describing, it's about detective work in the world of old books. Now let's quickly dismiss the other options. Descriptive bibliography just describes the book's physical features like page count, font, or illustrations. Enumerative bibliography, that's your good old list, by author, by genre, by topic, like a catalogue. Historical bibliography looks at the big picture, how printing evolved, the social history of books, not individual copy details. So remember, analytical bibliography equals deep, forensic level analysis of the physical book itself. Alright, let's take on the second question from Literary Research Aptitude. This section was one of the lighter ones in the paper easier compared to the dense theory questions in other units. But don't let that fool you. Each question still carries weight. Here's the next one. Which of the following is not a kind of literary research? Listen carefully to all the options. Think like a literary detective here. Option A, bibliography and textual criticism. Now pause. What do you think this refers to? Yes, it's the kind of research where scholars examine physical books, editions, manuscripts, printing errors. Think of it like checking the DNA of a text. What's authentic? What's been edited? What did the original author actually write? Option B, biographical. Sounds familiar? Yes, this is where a researcher connects an author's life with their writing. So if you're studying Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar through her personal history of depression, that's biographical research. We often use this to contextualize themes or interpret symbolism more deeply. Option C, experimental research. Wait, hold on. What kind of research is this? Now think. Does literature usually involve labs, control groups, and hypothesis testing? Not really. Experimental research is something we associate with psychology or education. In literature, we don't test chemicals. We test ideas. So, this one feels out of place. Let's park this one in the suspicious zone. Option D, interpretive. This one you've likely practiced the most. Every time you analyze a poem or decode a character's arc, you're doing interpretive research. This includes critical theory, close reading, deconstruction, feminism, Marxist, basically all the lenses we use to derive meaning from literature. So, final thought, 3 of these clearly belong in the world of literary research. One stands out like a lab coat in a library. And the answer is C, experimental research, not a type of literary research. So next time you see the word experimental, remember it might be scientific, but it's not literary. Drop a comment if this one surprised you or if you've ever confused interpretive with biographical. Happens more often than you'd think. Let us move to a key concept that bridges psychoanalysis, deconstruction, and archival theory. The question asks, Jacques Derrida's archive fever. A Freudian impression is related to which methodological approach? We begin with option A, archival method. This is where we must pause and reflect. In Archive Fever, originally delivered as a lecture in the mid-1990s and later published as a book, Derrida dives deep into what it means to archive. He explores not only the literal function of an archive as a storehouse of knowledge, but also the symbolic weight it carries. Drawing from Freudian theory, Derrida unpacks the human desire to collect, preserve, and at the same time repress memory. He explores how archives are shaped by authority, technology, and ideology. The archive is not neutral. It is a site of power. And it is this nuanced exploration that firmly places Derrida's work within the scope of what we understand as the archival method. Now consider option B, biographical method. Though Freud is discussed extensively, the work does not aim to examine Freud's life or use biographical data as a critical tool. This method does not apply here. Option C, visual method, might tempt you because Derrida does consider the role of media and representation. But visual analysis as a methodological lens is not central to the book. It is more about memory, repetition, and language than images. Option D, creative method, may sound plausible because Derrida writes in a dense, layered, sometimes poetic style. But the work itself is not a product of creative writing, nor is it a reflection on creativity as such. It is a philosophical critique. So, the correct answer is clearly option A, archival method. And this brings us to a powerful insight. Archiving is not merely an act of storing the past, but a performance of power, desire, and forgetting. Let us keep going and see what the next question brings. Let's dive into a powerful question that sits at the intersection of memory, culture, and storytelling. The question is, who developed the concept of the cultural circuit, which is important to the study of the interactions of culture and memory in oral history research? We begin with the correct answer, Graham Dawson and Al Thompson. These two scholars developed the framework of the cultural circuit to help us understand how memory is not merely a private individual act, but a deeply social and cultural process. In oral history research, they showed that when someone recounts a memory, it isn't just a personal recollection. It's shaped by the broader cultural context, political pressures, media narratives, and social scripts circulating at the time. They emphasized that remembering is never neutral. It's shaped by identity, by emotion, by trauma, and by who gets to tell their story and who does not. The cultural circuit allows oral historians to trace how personal testimony interacts with collective memory and national narratives. How a war veteran's account might echo a government's patriotic script or contradict it entirely. Now let's look at the other option. Option A includes Michael Holroyd and Roy Harrod. Holroyd is known for his literary biographies, particularly of George Bernard Shaw, while Harrod was an economist known for the Harrod-Domar model of economic growth. Their work has no connection to oral history or memory studies. Option B lists Zygmunt Bauman and Robert Putnam. Bauman certainly explored modernity and memory in sociological terms, and Putnam worked on civic engagement and social capital. However, neither of them framed the cultural circuit model as Dawson and Thompson did. Option C gives us Charles Taylor and Elizabeth Wilson. Taylor's work on identity and the self is foundational in philosophy and cultural theory, and Elizabeth Wilson is influential in feminist studies, but again, the focus is not on oral history or the cultural construction of memory through a circuit model. So, the answer that brings us closest to the heart of oral history, cultural memory, and the dynamics of storytelling is Graham Dawson and Al Thompson. Their contribution helps us see memory not as a filing cabinet, but as a living, shifting terrain shaped by culture, context, and power. Let us continue. The next question dives into the heart of discourse analysis. Which of the following is not a distinct discourse analytical research tradition as suggested by Margaret Wetherill and her colleagues? Now pause for a second and think. You've probably come across these terms if you've explored critical theory or discourse studies. So here are your options. Is it discursive psychology, which looks at how talk constructs meaning around emotions, intentions, and identity? Could it be Bakhtinian research, where language is viewed as a social battlefield of voices, echoing Mikhail Bakhtin's ideas of dialogism? Maybe it's Foucauldian research, based on Michel Foucault's analysis of how discourse controls knowledge and power across institutions and history? Or is it Saussurean research, which focuses more on structures and systems within language? Drop your answer in the comments before I reveal it. The correct answer is Saussurean research. While Saussure laid the foundation for structural linguistics, his approach focused on lang and parole discourse as a form of social action. That's why Wetherell and her team do not consider it a discourse analytical tradition. Instead, they focus on methods that explore language in context, power, and interaction. Let's tackle this next one. This question dives into citation structure. Are you ready? Arrange the following core elements of a works cited entry according to the MLA Handbook 9th edition. We've got 5 elements: publisher, title of source, author, title of container, and publication date. Now pause and think. Where do we begin? Could it be with the author's name, the one who created the work? Then what comes next? Maybe the title of the actual piece you're citing? Is the container, like a journal or website, the third? And how about the publisher and date? Do they come near the end? Let's lay it out step by step. First comes author, that's our C. Then we list the title of the source, the actual work, that's B. If that source is part of a bigger collection, like an anthology or a journal, we include the title of the container, that's D. Next is the publisher who brought the work to the public, that's A. And finally, the publication date, that's E. So what's the correct sequence? Option 1, C, B, D, A, E. That's how you format your MLA citations with precision. This order helps ensure consistency and clarity in scholarly writing. So the next time you're writing your works cited page, just remember this rhythm: author, title, container, publisher, date. Let us move forward. This question is a bit unconventional, but it's a practical one that every research scholar should be familiar with. It's about research strategy, specifically material collection hierarchy, as laid out by Delia da Souza Correa and W.R. Owens in the Handbook to Literary Research. Here's the task. Arrange these steps according to their suggested hierarchy for gathering research material. Take a look at these 4 steps. Visit your nearest major research library. Identify your nearest major research library. Identify what is available online. Visit your own university library. Now think for a moment. What would they suggest as the first step? Would you begin by identifying your major research library, or should you just go ahead and visit it? In this model, the first priority is not just identifying, but actively visiting your nearest major research library. That's D. Once you've accessed those rich resources, you reflect back to identify that institution in your overall plan. That's A. Then comes the step we might often place earlier but not here, which is to identify what is available online. That's C. And lastly, surprisingly perhaps, you should visit your own university library. That's B. Why? Because in terms of resource depth and specialization, local libraries often support but don't lead. Their strength lies in accessibility, not rarity. So the correct sequence is option 1, D, A, C, B. This approach puts emphasis on quality, depth, and planning. Strategic research isn't just about what's nearby or digital. It's about knowing where to go first and why. Let's take this one step at a time. This question checks your awareness of how to format dates and times in the body of a thesis according to the MLA Handbook 9th edition. Not the works cited page, but the actual prose. Which of the following rules hold true? Let's explore them one by one. First, does the month, day, year style require a comma after the year? Absolutely. This is standard in MLA style. For example, the event took place on the 4th of July, 1776, and it changed history. Notice the comma after 1776. So option A is correct. Now what about inserting a comma between the month and year when no day is mentioned? For example, the 19th of July 90, that's not MLA style. It should be, he was born in the 19th of July 90. No comma. So B is incorrect. C says that decades can be written out or in numerals. Is this true? Yes. You can say the 80s or the 1980s, both are correct as long as you're consistent. So C is correct. Now here's a tricky one. Should centuries be spelled out in uppercase letters? Definitely not. That's a common error. MLA uses lowercase for spelled out centuries, the 19th century, not 19th century. So D is incorrect. And finally, what about time? Should we use numerals and the 12-hour clock in prose? Yes. According to MLA, you should write time as she left at 5 p.m. Numerals and lowercase with periods for AM and PM. That makes E correct. So the correct answer is A, C and E only. Let's keep going with another engaging one. This time it's all about Latin abbreviations commonly used in scholarly writing, especially in footnotes, endnotes and citations. Here's the match the following challenge. You have 4 terms, et sq, idem, loxit and passim. And you're supposed to match them with their meanings. Let's break them down interactively, see if you can guess each before I confirm it. Et sq. What do you think? Does it mean the same or and the following? Right, it's short for et sequens or et sequentes, which means and the following. So A matches with 4. Now, idem sounds familiar. You've probably seen it in citations. It means the same and it refers to the same author cited just before. So B goes with 1. What about loc.sit? This one might stump you. But if you've seen obsit, you know it's about place. Loco.sit stands for loco citato, meaning in the place cited. So C matches with 2. And finally passim. Now this is a beautiful one. It doesn't mean once or twice. It means everywhere or scattered throughout. So if a theme appears again and again, you say passim. D goes with 3. So what's our final match? Option 3. And that brings us to the end of the Literary Research Aptitude section from the UGC NET English June 2025 exam paper. We've explored every question step by step, word by word, making sure nothing slips through the cracks. This time, the section was slightly longer than usual, but definitely more manageable compared to others. So if you've made it this far, pat yourself on the back. You're building solid ground for your preparation. In our next video, we're diving into Reading and Comprehension, a section that many take lightly, but often surprises even the best prepared aspirants. So stay tuned, keep your notes ready, and remember, understanding is always better than just guessing. Let's decode the next section together.